As soon as you mentioned Quinn Tupaia, I love this guy as a player. To see him back on the field last weekend was spectacular, wasn't it?
It's stupid not to say Penrith, so I will, but I really, really think the Broncos can get back there. I really do. I think it's a good-looking shirt, actually. I was quite pleased. I tell you what, it looked better on the model on the website than it does on me.
Welcome to the DSPN.
John Walker wins the 1,500 metres gold medal at the Olympic Games.
The All Blacks have won by 29 points to 9.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the podcast, people. The Friday edition of the DSPN. Marty Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. Let's take care of some housekeeping, some business to start with. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button for us. It really does help. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. We're a few hundred short. Want to try and get there in the next few weeks if we possibly can. Share, like, leave us a comment. Why? Because on Fridays we do it back. We comment on your comments. If you're listening on Rover or wherever you find your favourite podcast, again, thank you so much for supporting us. And share, like, leave a comment as well. It's so good that you're responding in kind. And I love the idea on a Friday where we actually sit down and we can say, hey, this is what you said and this is what we think about what you said to us and what we're saying back to you about what you said. Long-winded way of saying, please keep leaving the comments. We put lots of clips up on social media too. Martin Devlin _DSPN, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. On the show today, a couple of features for you, including our very own NRL Preview, where we're going to pick the 2 grand finalists. We're going to predict the Warriors season and tell which 3 teams are going to drop out of the 8 and which 3 are going to replace them. Because every year, it's about 2.8. It's close to 3. Well, let's just call it 3. As I said, it's Feedback Friday, where we answer a collection of the comments that you've sent us during the week. First up, though, as always...
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
I thought since it's Friday, look, all I'll do is I'll just give you the word on what sport there is to watch this weekend. Plenty on, as always. The NRL, underway in Las Vegas, well, you know. Round 3 of Super Rugby, the New Zealand Golf Open from Queenstown. There's golf going on all over the world. Champions Trophy Cricket, FA Cup and A-League for your round ball football fix. First look at the F1 cars and pre-season testing from Bahrain. I'm sure I've missed a few, including the Auckland fun run that's going on. Whole lot of concerts around the country as well. But look, what I thought I'd do is give you 3 or 4 must-watch things this weekend. And for me, they are rugby and rugby league, the 2 oval ball codes. Saturday, a triple treat of Super Rugby games, 1, 2, 3 in a row. Chiefs Brumbies 4:35, Canes Blues 7:05, Force Reds 9:35. Whether you've got the stamina or time to spare to do all 3 back to back to back is quite a commitment, but should be, after what we've seen thus far, a great afternoon into evening's entertainment. But the number 1 must-watch moment of the weekend for me has to be the Warriors versus the Raiders, 1 p.m. Sky on Sunday. The season opener. All the intrigue of not knowing what we're going to see and just how good will the Warriors be. 2 ways to really enjoy this, either at the pub or in the most comfy confines of your own gaff, which way you prefer. This is the number 1 can't miss, won't miss match of the weekend. Sit down, couch it up, close the curtain, crank the volume, gather the troops, fill your glass. Here we go, up the Waz. Once again, if you do have the time to spend, plenty of excellent live sport to watch this weekend.
Devlin.
NRL Big Bold prediction time.
Yes!
We got a few categories. 2 finalists. Who's going to make the grand final? Who's going to win it? 3 teams that were in the 8. Who drops out? 3 teams that weren't in the 8. Who goes in? Because every year, I think it's 2.8 teams drop out, 2.8 go in. Yes! How will the Warriors go? And 1 big, bold prediction for the season. 2 finalists to kick it off. I got Melbourne Penrith. Tell me I'm wrong. Argue against that. I'm right. Those 2 teams will play the grand final.
Well, I mean, you've got it's not exactly a bold take. You've got the 2 most successful franchises in the last, well, really could say 20 years if you want to go back to 2003 when Melbourne first had Craig Bellamy. I would say yes to Melbourne. I think they're probably going to be, I think they're going to win it. So that'd be my pick for the grand final to win it as well as getting there. I don't want to get into this trap because, look, I've walked through a forest. I've been tantalised by the meat on the bear traps and gone, okay, that meat being that Penrith have lost good players. They're not going to be that good anymore. And I've gotten stuck in that trap for many years now. I refuse until this team doesn't win a premiership to say that they're not going to be in the grand final.
Yeah.
However,
He's going to say Broncos. I can feel
No,
it.
I'm not
He's
going
gonna say
to say Broncos. I'm just
He's
going to
say Broncos. Take your shirt off like all their players do, mate. You can't say the word Broncos without lifting it up.
I'm just nervous to say Penrith because there's got to be a point when you lose these players that it catches up with you, and they've lost
Well, pick another team.
two of their three most. I'm just saying two of their three most important, and Jerome Luai, who I know you don't like, but especially
I don't like him playing for New South Wales.
I thought last year, and in Origin as well last year,
He
he was
actually played
very
well
good. I
third
felt like
game.
he almost came of age last year as a
We'll do
player.
it again this year, pal.
And James Fisher-Harris is a big loss as well, I think. Now, they've also added Isaiah Papali'i, by the way. Really good player who the Warriors, I don't know if they let him go by choice. I think he chose to leave and then obviously went over across the ditch. But I'm still... It's stupid not to say Penrith, so I will, but I really, really think, and look, shoot an arrow in me, I don't care. I really think the Broncos can get back there. I really do. And I know the sound...
Put them in the 8. Give there. I've got a category for you here.
I know that you've asked for my grand finalists. I know it sounds stupid because I'm a Broncos fan for starters and we missed the 8. Look, this team has a lot to prove. Don't get me wrong.
2 grand finalists.
But
that was the
talent-wise...
pick 2 grand finalists.
I'm telling you now, I'm giving you the reasoning because it sounds stupid. I feel like it's fair I give a bit of reasoning here. Talent-wise, I think a lot of people agree Brisbane have one of the 3 or 4 best rosters in the competition. You also add a coach who's won a grand final and is known as a bit of a hard ass who whips teams into shape. That's the one thing we needed.
Yeah.
I'm very rose tinted glasses, glass half full. They're maroon tinted glasses. I get it, and we have a lot to prove.
Going out afterwards and doing
they have
it on
a lot
the
to prove, but I think Brisbane. It's Melbourne versus Brisbane or Penrith for the grand final.
The reason
That's
I'm
what
picking
I'm
Penrith
saying.
is exactly what you're saying. Until proven otherwise, it's like the heavyweight champ. Until proven otherwise, you've got to beat that guy. And Penrith, to me, are still the standard. 4 in a row, 5 finals in a row. So we're both picking the Storm to win it. I'm picking them to win it. And I think that's because of their spine. If they stay injury-free, Jerome Hughes...
It's not just their spine, it's their coach as well.
Yeah, I know, but they've got everything going.
They consistently put... The Storm have... It's incredible what Craig Bellamy does, where he gets players who are... not scrubs, that's a bit harsh, but players who really are mid-level players on at other clubs, and he just they would be, and he just turns them into stars, really.
Yeah. So forget about the match in the Tron against the Warriors. This Melbourne side will come to play.
Stop it.
3 teams drop out. On average, it's 2.8 teams. So when you look at last year's 8, now I'm going for 2 that drop out as opposed to 3. I could pick 3, but the 2 that I think are going are the Cowboys, who finished in 5th last year, and the Knights, who finished in 8th. If I had to pick a 3rd, I'd be looking at perhaps Manly, maybe, but I still think the Bulldogs are strong enough, and I think the top 4 teams are absolutely strong.
Okay, hold up. So give me your teams again.
Cowboys and Knights drop out.
Yeah, I agree with the Knights. I think the Knights will drop out. The Knights are a team that consistently punch above their weight.
Yeah,
I
they
think,
did bloody well making it
which is
last
actually
year.
a compliment, if anything.
Yes.
They have a lot of players who tend to go out there and really perform above what is expected. They still don't have a good halves pairing. And I think the forward pack lacks a bit of depth. Obviously, Kalen Ponga, granted, he's been has probably been the best player in the comp the last 2 years, but he is, he does struggle a bit with injuries. But I just think the Knights, it feels like the Raiders from maybe last year, the year before, they're overstaying their welcome a bit if they get back into the 8. They just don't have the talent compared to other teams. I'm not going to say the Cowboys because I think Todd Payton's a very good coach. Valentine Holmes is a big loss, but I still think that club is going places with Payton as their coach, so I think they stay in the 8, but I think they'll be in that bottom. They'll be in the 5 to 8 range. Manly, I think, have actually too much experience in class. I think I really like their roster. I'm going to say the Bulldogs.
No, really?
The Bulldogs.
They were touted, mate. Look, the last 3 or 4 games of the season, they kind of...
Well, they fell away and they lost in the first week of the finals.
Yeah, they did, but up until then, they weren't on.
Well, there's always a Cinderella team. There's always a team that takes people. It was the Warriors 2 years ago, the Dogs last year, it was Brisbane nearly in 2022. I just think the Bulldogs, look, they've got a lot of talent out wide. They've got a lot of talent in their forward pack. Matt Burton, for me, should be playing in the centres. That's his best position. He shouldn't be playing 5'8". Yes, he's got a good boot on him, but still. There's a question mark a little bit at the fullback position. Connor Tracy's not too bad. Blake Taff I've never really rated personally. So for the Dogs, the most important part of your team is your halves.
Doggies in.
Well, no, but their halves simply aren't good enough compared to other finals teams.
All right, well, we'll argue about this throughout the season.
I think that, but Serrata's a good coach. They've got a good roster. They made it last year, sure, but I think the Dogs drop out. Those are my 2.
3 teams that make the 8 that weren't in. These are my 3. Broncos, absolutely. I'll give you that. Waz, I think we're going to punch him over. I think we're going to punch him over. The separate categories we're going to talk about how
the studio.
Waz are in the 8.
So,
and the other one is the Eels. And I'm saying the Eels because that club, with that roster, with that talent, has had, 3 or 4 absolute turd seasons in a row. Eventually, it's going to come right for them.
No, they made the grand final in 2022.
Yeah, and then 3, 4... or 2 seasons in a row where they've crapped it. The Rabbitohs, I looked at them and I thought, maybe them. The Raiders, points differential last year, I don't think that's going to be them. I think the Broncos are a lock. I think the Waz are going to make it, and I think the Eels are the other team. They have to come right.
Yeah, just a quick update on the Broncos. They've got a couple of little injury troubles, so that's something to take note of.
Yeah, but we're making the 8, though. It's throughout the season, right?
You know who Parramatta, by the way, added? And this might change your opinion on that. Josh Adokar. He's on the roster.
Well, they're going to be fun after the match, aren't they?
So, hold up. You've given 2 teams are dropping out, but you're saying 3 getting in there.
Yeah, I know, because it's a 2.8
well, so you've
thing.
either got to give me a third who's dropping out or take away one of the 3 you're putting in there.
Well,
I'm giving you an avenue to get the Warriors out of there.
That's my rules, mate. The Warriors are making it, the Eels are making it, the Broncos are making it.
Who are the 3 that are dropping out?
I said the Cowboys and the Knights and
Cowboys,
maybe
Knights.
Manly, maybe.
Okay, there you go. Manly's your third one, which I think's
or Dogs or Manly, either one of those 2 go.
Jesus, you're like Matt Gunn. You're in love with the Dogs.
I just think...
Why do you love the Dogs?
I don't. I hate the Dogs, but I just think after last season, I just love Stephen Crichton.
3, I would have said Brisbane, obviously, are getting in there, and I don't think that's a stupid thing to say. I don't think that's a biased thing to say. South Sydney are an interesting one because I would have said yes with Wayne coming back, but they've got a lot of injury troubles, okay? They're missing a couple of key players to start this, quite a few
Even
key players
that wonder
to start the
coach
season.
ain't going to help them this year, mate.
Well, that wonder coach nearly got the Dolphins, a brand new team, into the 8. He should have gotten them into the 8 last year. So I'm not too sure about South. I would still say yes, being glass half full about these injuries. You know, Latrell being one. He's like, I love Latrell Mitchell as a player, and he's really slimmed up. But man, that guy's never healthy. He is never healthy. It's just he's the Joel Embiid of the NRL.
Well, it's just,
so much promise and he's just never. And I want him to. I want him to be. I love Latrell Mitchell.
Fantastic to watch, mate. But yeah, he's got to be playing every week for that team to be winning every week.
Exactly. So the Broncos, I'll say yes to South Sydney. Jeez. Outside of that, Parramatta maybe. I think the Dragons.
Okay.
I think the Dragons have added...
Miles said that on Thursday. He said at yesterday's podcast he thinks his Dragons are going to make it. On what basis?
Well, last year, they didn't change much with their roster at all. It was pretty much the same team. And then they add Shane Flanagan as coach. And they went from cellar dwellers in the NRL to the top 8 in their hands, and they lost some games towards the end. They blew it. They absolutely blew it, the Dragons, and they looked good last year. They looked really good, and that's the impact of a good coach. And then you add Clint Gutherson to the mix.
Okay, you've got there. Broncos. You got them.
I got Broncos, Dragons, and South. So those are my 3 making it, and the 3 dropping out would have been, who were they again? I said the Dogs, I said the Knights, and I said
Manly.
No, I didn't. Did I say Manly or Cowboys? I think I only dropped out 2. Okay, if I'm only taking 2 out, which are the Knights and they are the Dogs, then my 2 going into the Broncos and the Rabbits. But the Dragons, seriously Dragons, they will be there or thereabouts for the 8 again.
How will the Warriors go then? I'm picking top 8. I'm picking because I'm being optimistic about this. Okay, I'm looking at that roster, and what I'm hoping for is I know that we've dropped a lot of players, we've dropped a lot of experience and all of that, but sometimes the young guys, Matt Elliott was telling us the other day, sometimes that hunger and this just that freshness of youth and the fact that there's no fear factor and all of that. I think up front, if we can keep our 2 big boys fit all year, we've got 2 of the best go-forward props in the competition. Who? James Fisher-Harris.
And who's the second one?
Mitch Barnett.
Barnett's good. No, I don't think he's in that top echelon of props in the NRL.
He's an origin prop these days. I think those 2 to me are as competitive as everybody else. It is just the key for the Warriors is keeping the halves combination intact and those guys getting better as the season goes. To win it, to make the 8, to win it, when I'm talking about making the 8, you need 13 or 14 wins, right? You need to get
13, yeah.
13 wins. Okay, the Warriors had 9 last year. There's about 6 games that were bloody close, touch and go within a few points. You can win half of those games. They're that close to it. And look, and I looked at that Penrith game again. I watched that highlights. I watched the highlights the other day just because I was thinking, I was getting this theory about young players and what they can possibly do.
That's one game. You're asking them to do it for 24.
What I'm asking, I'm just saying the potential is there, and there's got to be a team that does that every year. Like the Dogs did it last year, the Warriors did it the year before. I think the Warriors can bounce back.
Okay, hold up. Okay, there's a couple of counters to that. For starters, now, I don't think this is hot take. I really nothing against Mitchell Barnett. I really like Mitchell Barnett. Just quickly, I could probably name 4 or 5 at least other props
You
in the
need a guy that is that consistent.
No, but
He's 8.5 out of 10 every time he plays.
If you're looking at that front row duo, and James Fisher-Harris, I've got nothing bad to say about him, but I don't think it's up there with Brisbane, with the Roosters. I don't think it's up there with the Panthers, not at all. I think the Storm at least have enough size. To be fair, it's up there, but I don't think it's one that's...
It's a top 8 position. That's all we're after. It could be 8th. Right, 8th is a good finish for the season.
Maybe I'm a bit off there with my Barnett opinion. But now, this roster is, man for man, a smidge worse than last year's roster because you've taken out a lot of experience and you're relying now on youth.
Sean didn't play last year,
and
right?
now you're relying on
Jazz
youth.
is off the
And
bench.
now you're relying on youth, okay? That's one thing. Secondly, that roster compared to, say, South Sydney, say, Brisbane, say, North Queensland, the Canterbury, all of these teams that could be on the fringe of the 8 or fighting for those last few spots in the top 8, it pales in comparison.
Look, all of that
With
is
all
on,
due respect,
all of that is
it
on
pales
paper,
in comparison.
and you are probably right. But I think the Warriors in that bunch of about 7 or 8 teams that are fighting for the positions of 6, 7, and 8.
No,
I reckon that the home crowd advantage and just that wet sail that brings, and the origin period as well. If you add all of that, I'm optimistic about that.
This is the issue, and I don't want to be critical of Warriors fans. I love the passion they show for their club, genuinely. But this is the issue I think with having a single club here in New Zealand is that you get these glasses on, these rose-tinted glasses,
what's wrong with that?
where you ignore the noise from the other side of the ditch.
Yeah, man.
You're
I'm just
saying
talking about reality. I'm not talking about hype. I'm talking reality.
But you're talking about things that apply to everyone.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm
home
only looking at the
crowds,
Warriors.
wet sail,
Warriors.
potential of roster.
Warriors.
This is irrelevant to every team. What makes the Warriors special?
Top 8.
No, I think that's a legitimate answer. That's a legitimate
saying top
question.
8, and you're saying what?
Well, now, I can't really say too much because I said my Broncos are making the grand final, so...
Last one big bold prediction for the season. At least one player in the NRL is going to test positive post-match for cocaine or some other
bold prediction.
Another party drug. And the bold prediction is that person, when they front the media and do the tearful mea culpa, is not going to say, I was just out trying to find a phone charger. And also, my other big bold prediction is that the 2 guys in Canberra that got in trouble for getting drunk and doing all of that is going to happen at least another half dozen times throughout the season. Those are my 2 big bold predictions for the NRL. And the NRL will do what they always do. They'll embrace it, they'll tut it, they'll put them in front of the cameras, and then they'll be playing next week.
Okay, well, I've got 3 that I've now got to reduce down to 2. Now, can I just preface this by saying bold predictions aren't really meant to happen. They're just wild things that, well, if you can make a good enough argument, yeah, okay.
Do you think mine are bold?
Maybe they could. No, I don't think. I think yours are going to happen. Those are happening. They're not bold. But
we know they're happening.
I can't say Brisbane, getting back into the top 4 and then into the grand final is a bold prediction because I genuinely think there's a good chance. Now, a great man named Billy Slater thinks the same thing, if I may say.
He also thought he'd win Origin last year.
Well, of course.
And was 1-0 up. And guess what happened?
A really well coached New South Wales side by Michael Maguire, now coach of the Broncos.
And my man, Jerome Luai.
Your man. I've got 2. One is that the Dolphins will struggle this year a lot more than the last couple of years.
I think you're right.
And based on the roster's good, I just simply think the job at hand for Christian Wolf, I think people think it's going to be a lot easier than what it really is because the greatest coach in the history of rugby league just did that job, and I think he'll be gone by the end of the season. I don't want that to happen. Don't misconstrue this as I want to see coaches get sacked. I genuinely don't. I just think that could certainly happen. My other one, I don't know if I can say this one because people aren't going to like me very much, but it's what I've sort of thought for a little while. I reckon that the Warriors, I don't think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to show promise. I think there's going to be a lot of young talent. There's going to be green shoots. I think it's exactly what Matt Elliott said. They're going to dip down, but they're going to show some serious promise by the end of the season.
Here we go. You know what's coming here, don't you?
No, I think...
That's what's coming. That's what he's going to say. He's going to say it.
I think that Andrew Webster's going to get poached and taken back to coach a team in Sydney.
No,
that's what I think. But now it's bold. Great, it's bold.
No.
I don't think it's really. It probably won't happen. But I think the issue with the Warriors, if they can't become a consistent top 8 side, Andrew Webster's a spectacular coach. I think there is a Sydney club any club really, but probably a Sydney club that is going to come knocking on the door. That's what I thought you were doing there.
I was saying you're saying wooden spoon. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, they will be fighting off the spoon. No, I think I seriously think there is a good chance.
My bold prediction before the end of the season.
That whether it's this year or next year, I think that a Sydney club will come calling, and Andrew Webster will sit down and think to himself, "Do I actually want to stick it out here at the Warriors for much longer? Or do I want to go and coach?" Whether it's the Tigers, whether it's the Drags or lose the coach, whoever, I think someone will come calling, and he will, at the very least, genuinely consider going back to Sydney and being a full-time coach for a club over there.
My big bold prediction: you will be eating humble pie at season's end, and you'll be sitting here going, "I was wrong about the Warriors."
I probably will be, and I'm not saying I want it to happen.
Cut the tape. That's all I need.
I'm just saying I think there's a good chance, and it's bold. It's absolutely bold, but I could absolutely see it happening.
I love this part. This is a brand new feature. It's Fan Forum or Comment Corner or whatever it is you want to call it. It's where we comment on your comments to us, because we keep asking you to leave a comment and we try and get back to as many as possible. I'm running 2 jobs at the moment, breakfast on the New Morning Sound as well as doing the podcast. So there are time constraints. All I'm saying is that we do read the comments and we try and answer as many as possible, and we use this part of the show on a Friday where we can sit here, take your comments and comment straight back. Justin Marshall earlier on in the week talking about Tawatawa Wanawai and his contribution to the Highlanders, especially also Tasman over the last couple of years, and that he said he should have a black jersey on his back this year or at least be in the conversation. Asymmetric.edge, as you can see there. 2 weeks and he's great. And says, how about Quinn Tupaia? His nasty knee injury was unfortunate, but very solid and comfortable in the All Blacks environment. And another reply to that, he should be starting All Blacks second 5. Geordie out 1 to 13 and Rico out altogether. I just think as soon as you mention Quinn Tupaia, I love this guy as a player. He's had one of the most wretched last couple of years, injury problems and everything else. To see him back on the field last weekend was spectacular, wasn't it? And if he continues to play like that, I reckon he is in the equation.
Well, there was plenty of really good moments from him against the Blues, I thought, at Eden Park as well. It's very vague in my head, but I think he bumped off 2 guys. It was Offatunga-Fasi and it was another forward, and he just bumped them off and hit a gap really well. Could have been getting him actually mixed up with someone else there, but he definitely had some good moments against the Blues at Eden Park. And he's someone who, look, it's one of those like nasty murder cases. This sounds morbid, but wrong place, wrong time. When it came to that Darcy Swain hit on his knee, it was like Darcy Swain could have done that to anyone. It just happened to be Quinn Tupaia, and it put him back so far.
It's been a long road back,
and he's been looking great so far. He's moving really well, which is obviously what you want to see with your knee when you have a serious knee injury like that. So no, I actually would like to see him being the guy that Razor puts at 12 from day one and says, "Okay, you're my 12 because of your All Blacks experience already and how you're playing now."
He's in the squad, I reckon. If he keeps injury free, he's in the squad.
Yeah, but I think he should be our starter, at least for this year.
On to at New Zealand at Free Ski. Guys, had a fair few South African fans mention the lack of defence, a fair call, but I love Marshy explaining why. The new rules, the speed of the game. Not time to rest means the game is fast, and you, Martin, were spot on. As the season goes on, things will tighten up. So I just wanted to make note of that, because I actually think...
Well, because someone said something nice and positive about you and your analysis.
What
a shock.
There was that, but also I just think that, Justin was right as well. I mean, his pointing that out, that it is a hell of a lot faster at the moment. But to me, we were just talking about at the beginning of the week, it was just simple that, look, the first couple of rounds were about entertainment, about, putting a spectacle on the tally, lots of tries, lots of close games, lots of really fantastic finishes. The defence will come, and that's the point. And I think we made that at the start of the week, rather than get all angsty about the fact that, hey, these are basketball scores, which is what the Northern Hemisphere continually say.
Well, a good chunk of them are, but remember in 2010 there was a game between the Chiefs and the Lions that was 72-65. I remember there was a game that same year between the Crusaders and the Bulls where the Bulls won like 49-34. There's always been pretty big scores.
Plus we've had a couple, the Blues and the Chiefs opening round, and also the Blues and the Highlanders were probably more like you'll get the scores coming at the later rounds.
But it's also the style of rugby we play down in this part of the world. You can break a game open and pile on 3 tries in the space of 8 minutes. Just like that, the score can blow open. We
did a little feature earlier in the week where we ranked the 5 best New Zealand coaches. Again, it's always contentious. It's just opinion. It's just a bit of fun. This from at Love My Sport 7902. I would say that New Zealand have the best pool of coaches, management, executive staff and players of all the rugby nations. I don't know about administrators, but no other country can claim to have contributed so much to so many non-New Zealand teams around the world. The comment, as you can see there, goes on. But again, agree entirely with that, because we do. And you made this point earlier in the week about if we could have almost a first 15 of New Zealand coaches. And Clayton McMillan during the week ends up going to Munster. And I think he was 4 or 5 on our list or something like that. There was a couple of comments about, well, where's Tony Brown? Tony's a great assistant coach.
We did mention Tony Brown.
We did mention Tony needs, it's like all assistant coaches. You've got to be the head coach for a while first before on that list. I mean, that was one of the prerequisites of the list we did, is that you've got to be a head coach rather than just...
Well, it goes without saying, if you're ranking the best coaches,
you've got to be a head coach.
It's kind of hard to put assistants ahead of a head coach. Right?
Again, absolutely agree with you. And it's something we should be incredibly proud of here in New Zealand, because it is a massive contribution to rugby all over the world that, you look at whatever team it is, and there's a New Zealander somewhere in the background helping out. I love this one. This is from the Release the JFK Files department. Joey Manu is heading back to the NRL.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that man never landed on the moon. Based on the fact that there was another shooter on the grassy knoll. I've been to Dallas. I've discussed the conspiracy theories.
Pyramids were built by aliens.
The pyramids were actually where the alien ships landed on the top to refuel.
You've seen those graphics over like what Egypt looked back then. Obviously, something went on, whether they discovered alcohol or something changed, and But no,
but keep us informed about the Joey Manu story. I'm not taking the piddle here. Keep us informed about that. Illegal Kiwi 2193. This is directed to you. Imagine being such a hipster that you put Razor at 3. Because this is how you rate it. Now, it wasn't the fact you put Razor at 3. He calls you a hipster. I don't even know what that is. They're a pair of jeans. When I grew up, hipsters were jeans.
Yeah, but it's a look.
That hung around down here, and they just looked like no one wore those. You can't even wear a belt with the bastard. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I guess it's a look now, right? It's tucked in T-shirts. It's strange looking hairdos. It's glasses, which I do. I got a moustache. I got a mullet. Maybe I am a hipster.
Are you a
I got
hipster?
mullet as well.
Okay, all right. He's
I
a
haven't got
hipster.
my T-shirt tucked in. I can do that if you want.
Okay.
I'm not going to unzip my pants on this.
We'll go on to keep it simple. Joseph and the coaching staff at the Landers got them absolutely fizzing, not to mention Hurley. Tava Nawai, outstanding go the Highlanders. And the reply to that was, early days, bro. Early days. I love the reply to that. I love your passion, though, and you should be feeling like that after Jamie had got that team so fired up that with 13 managed to defend the Blues and win. That was an outstanding result, and I reckon we're going to look back through the competition, and that's going to be one of the results of the competition.
Well, it's an example of what, there's some sports where really good coaches make more of an impact than other sports. I think the NBA, it's the opposite. I just think you just need the players. And I wonder if it's a sport where it's about aggression and physicality, where you're bumping into each other.
Well, that's what Jamie said. He just had to get his guys fit, remember?
Because...
And believing in themselves that they can tackle the guy in front of them.
But when someone, there's a stirring pre-match message and you're just absolutely amped and pumped and you're ready to run through a brick wall, when you get that G up, it does things to you physically. And I can only imagine that when it comes to a game like rugby union, or rugby league, or the NFL, that you just hit another level in terms of your performance physically,
a hipster.
right?
What would you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I don't know anything about
You're a
sports
hipster.
and aggression and but I
He's
think
a pair of jeans. This one here from W.E.W. Hoffly. Very nice to hear you guys give Joe Schmidt his props. He got Ireland finally operating on the same rail line as the top tier sides. Honourable mention of Nusafora behind the scenes, but it was Joe who's faded in the thoughts of many who now heap praise on Farrell as the master and commander, but Joe instilled the belief. We talked about this when we talked about ranking the coaches, and we had Joe at number 2 there, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that because he gets too easily forgotten. That victory by Ireland in Chicago over the All Blacks was the turning point. Up till then, it was 100 and something years we would always looked at Ireland, and Ireland were a great bunch of lads, good crack, 60 minutes, and then they're gone. And all of a sudden, they became serious from that point in time. So I think, nice that you recognise Joe Schmidt as well, I think, because he does deserve that.
Well, it's a lot easier to continue good work than to start it, right? You've got to, it's easy to, it's like if you're starting a podcast, for example, if you're doing anything in any walk of life that's new and fresh, you've got to do something that's different that sets you apart. And I think it's the same with coaching. You've got to, if you're taking over a team, you've got to change something if they're not performing well or they're underachieving. Yep. And the guy who does that is, the bloke who follows on, like an Andy Farrell in this case, or if I may bring up my Liverpool, Arne Slot.
Yep. But Klopp should get the credit for putting the foundation
Bill
in
Shankly
place.
and Bob Paisley, you know.
That's right.
There's always a guy who's who set the foundation, and that's almost the guy that needs more credit than the guy who's actually probably getting more accolades and silverware. So, not to take anything away from Andy Farrell, but no, Joe Schmidt, absolutely. With where Ireland rugby is right now, he is probably the most to thank for that.
At Love My Sport 7902, the Super Rugby officials are doing a good job of keeping the game flowing, making it a better spectacle to watch. It'll be interesting to see if World Rugby adopt the same attitude. In the England-Scotland game, practically every time they're defending in their 22 and England player went down with an injury, allowed to slow the game down. I think that this is one of the things that we bring in the Southern Hemisphere 2-hour rugby. Yeah, we want to see a faster game. We want to see less stoppages. And again, just pointing back to what Justin said, and the comment that came from what he was right about. Maybe there's a lot of errors. Maybe there's not as much defence because the game is a lot faster. But fair play. Look, we smack the officials up every time that they do cock it up, and we hate the TMO interfering. We've had a couple of cards, obviously, which were necessary. Now, I don't have anything about the cards that were given, the red cards and everything last weekend. But again, I think the officials are actually doing a bloody good job trying to keep this game flowing and trying to keep you in the box from interfering.
Well, I was very shocked to see
good props.
Was it from the Reds, Hunter Paisami, not get a red card for that hit on one of the Moana Pacifica players in the first half. He only got a yellow. I think it was that might have been his second issue that he had. But it was this horrible hit. It was a bit of a head clash or a shoulder to the head or something along those lines. It just looked nasty. So maybe the refs are too lenient in some areas. Like the Dan Leonard-Brown one I thought was a straight red.
Yeah,
it was actually a yellow first. No, to your point, absolutely. Refs are doing a good job with it.
At TJ145, Razor will not bring us World Cup glory. Should have selected Joseph as our head coach. Here we go. It's a bit early in the start of the season in Super Rugby to start that, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's actually surprising.
I actually call that from the I Hate Ian Foster department because you've just inserted, Razor's name over Ian Foster there, isn't it? How do we know? It's 2027. We don't even know who's actually going to be fit to play the tournament. We've got no knowledge of what's going to go on in 2026 next year, let alone the year after that. But I love the fact that somebody's already decided that Razor can't win us a World Cup.
They did that to Fossing, didn't they? About 4 or 5 years ago. I'm surprised how many anti-Razor people there are in this country. I actually thought that everyone loved him, but apparently not.
At Tama Wakeland, 6591. I've been saying it. Watch out for Joey Manu. Our midfielder's looking good. JB not a 12 and Rico not a 13. So, again, with Joey Manu, obviously he's going back to the NRL, as our JFK conspiracy theorist told us a little bit
Yes, there's
earlier.
no point talking about him in the All Blacks, right?
Look, when you see Joseph Swali'i and what he can bring, even though we've only seen him in little bits and cameos, but every time he gets the ball, he looks so dangerous. I can't wait to see the progress of Joey Manu. He's with Shag and Foz in Japan. He's away from the limelight. This is where Roger should have gone. This is, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
Yeah, but NZR were greedy.
Well, because they needed the promotional aspect.
They had dollar signs in their eyes.
And they thought that he was going to bring a lot of Warriors fans to rugby and all of that. But to be serious and to try and make the All Blacks in that position when you've been playing a different sport, being away from the microscope in Japan is the best thing for this guy.
Yeah.
And I really am just intrigued as to how those two coaches are going to mould him into a rugby player. He's not going to make the same mistakes, but Roger looked a bit lost going into contact, and that's natural because your born instinct is not like, okay, stand over the ball, wrestle the guy, all of that kind of stuff. So I think he's in the best place, Joey Manu.
Well, you put him in
and he's a superstar athlete, man. So
yeah, you put him in a position that's uncomplicated, essentially, and probably I won't say the easiest position, but I think one of the more again, this is going to be offensive, but one-dimensional positions in rugby would be playing wing or probably centre. I mean, centre at least I think would be an easier position to play, at least if you're going from league to union. That'd be easier than playing second five. But I think he's been playing a fair bit of fullback in Japan as well, Joey Manu. So he's a Swiss Army knife in the back.
I hope so,
But you're right, he's an absolute athlete and incredibly skilled. This sounds incredibly greedy, and you become that as an All Blacks fan. I just sit there and go, oh, this is awesome, but I feel like there's other positions we need to plug then in the midfield.
No, I think we need to sort of midfield here. But anyway, a guy like that could be a weapon.
But we've got options. It's about a partnership.
He could play wing, he could play fullback, he could play any...
I want to get the next Sam Cane at number 7.
I want to find a new first 5.
Which I want to get a new first 5 too, which I think Blakeadder could be our next 7, but he's never healthy. Like Latrell Mitchell.
At Daney ST. I don't agree with Marty saying Australia don't have the playing squad. They've got some of the most powerful, dynamic players in the world and lists a hell of a lot of players. This is from the... everyone loves a corrector, and I'm going to correct myself here. What the point I was trying to make, and obviously didn't make it clearly.
You're admitting that you were wrong.
I wasn't wrong. I'm just saying I'm correcting. That's kind of like what she says to you,
So instead of getting an X on your test, you're actually just getting the twink.
No, well, that's when when you live with your partner, they're never wrong. They just correct you.
I've never lived with a woman.
But what I was trying to say is it's not about their playing squad, it's about the strength and depth in Australian rugby and the how to get those stocks. Like, if New Zealand's got, say, maybe 100 professional rugby players that potentially could be All Blacks, Australia might have 30. Yeah, you might be able to pick a good 15 or 23 players here, but to develop, what my point was, to develop Australian rugby over the next 10 years, you need to get the young male athletes playing rugby, not playing other sports, and that's where Australia is behind the 8 ball. That's the point I was trying to make. I mean, you'll pick 15 great Australian players. They always can. I mean, I think, there's enough players there to select from. But I was making a point, and I don't think I made it.
Can I
as
make
well as I
2
should.
points? They don't really counter, or no, they're 1 point with 2 examples. It doesn't really counter what you're saying, but I think it kind of goes hand in hand with it in a sense, against it. The All Blacks in 2007 and the All Blacks in 2019, how did their depth work out for them at the World Cup? Playing teams that probably don't have as many great players across a starting 15. We can have the third best third string first 5 in the world. We could have a brilliant, hooker who's actually 5th in our depth chart. None of it matters when it comes around to a test match.
Well, that's what we're lacking at the moment.
15 versus 15 on the
World-class
field.
players, and we don't actually have enough of them. And this argument I've peddled for years now. When you look back at the 2015 side, where if you picked a World 15, then 7 All Blacks were in the forward pack and probably 3 in the back line.
That's like watching having watched The Godfather and then watching, I don't know, Casino or Goodfellas and saying, oh, well, I've watched a better mob film. Well, yeah, because that's probably one of the greatest films of all time.
Right,
you're talking about the greatest rugby team of all time.
Then. This one from Keith Wright. Lachlan, is that a flannel shirt? Was that a flannel shirt? It looks like a flannel shirt.
Obviously, you're not talking about this one.
No, the flannel shirt. The
green green one.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a flannel shirt. I got it at a vintage shop, so that makes me more of a hipster, doesn't it? So it was second hand.
Comment, feedback to us and define. Is that a flannel shirt? Does that make you a hipster?
I think it's a good looking shirt, actually. I was quite pleased. I tell you what, it looked better on the model on the website than it does on me. It's got kind of a baggier look on him, and then he's taller than me as well, because they give you they give you the measurements of. I always find this funny, of the model that you're looking at, which makes sense actually, but I don't know why I find it funny. And I looked at it on him, and then as soon as I put it on, I was like, well, it's a little bit more fitted.
You're lucky you didn't buy it off TiVo, mate.
Because
it would have come about that.
See my gut.
Yeah. At Scorpios 6964, wooden spoon for the Warriors 2025. Bugger off, mate. With all the love in my heart.
Who's getting the spoon then?
Bugger off, mate.
Who's getting the spoon then?
Tigers, mate.
Really? They've had some players.
Yeah, they're
I think it's really unfortunate actually about the Tigers. Benji Marshall I think is a much better he's got an awful team.
Warriors have never had
with.
the spoon.
So what? Brisbane never had it and then got it in 2020. Warriors could absolutely get it this year.
Couple of comments. I'll go very close. Flip the coin between the Dragons, Titans, Tigers, Dolphins, and them. I mean, you've named 5 teams there.
Flip the coin. Five-sided coin.
What kind of coin's that? Marty, you're entitled to your opinion. It says Tuko 144. There's nothing wrong with setting a high standard and expectation. It's what every NRL team does. I'd prefer to see a top 5 finish as a benchmark for the Warriors this year. Top 8's achievable, top 5 better. Warriors have got a good pack, including the bench. They've invested in good young talent. Let's be optimistic. Costs nothing better than being pessimistic. Look, I made the point yesterday in the editorial that I did. And, I'm being realistic, not pessimistic. The Warriors are not winning the comp this year. And you're in La La Land if you think that they are winning the comp. But what I'm saying, it's like asking me, are Man United winning the Premier League next year? No, we're not. And as much as I want us to...
What has more chance of happening? The Warriors win the Premiership this year and Man United win the
Warriors
Premier League
win the
next
Premiership.
year?
No question
I'd
about
agree
it.
with that.
And
as much as I don't think the Warriors are ever winning a Premiership. Yeah,
that's right. Look, and I agree with you. Be optimistic as much as you like. But for the purposes of this debate, I'm not going to sit here and say the Warriors are winning the chip because it's not going to happen. I don't believe in my heart for a nanosecond it's going to happen. So I'm not going to stare down the barrel of the camera and tell you that's going to happen when I don't believe it. That's all. If you want to believe it, good on you. Fine. I'm not shouting you down, but I don't believe that. I hope that we make the 8, and I think the 8 would be a realistic expectation because that's what we demand of the team. And also, if we make the 8, to me, the season's a success.
Well, to be fair, if that team from 2 years ago can make the 8, then I think any Warriors team can. Because to be fair,
but we talked a bit about the Warriors. We'll move on to this one. The Marathoner Mahos. Miles is the best football analyst in the country, and he's so underutilised.
Yeah.
Here, bloody here, mate.
Agreed.
Here, bloody here. And,
we don't really have many good ones.
I tell you what, put him on Sky Sport, put him on the A-League, put him on Sens Radio, whatever it is. Get him talking football. There is no one better in the country that talks football than that guy. I totally agree with you. And we started the House of Football in 1998. He's totally underutilised. And I don't know why the TAB and whoever it is aren't screaming and knocking down his door because this guy rates, people love his opinions. He lives and breathes the thing. You're totally right. SC Warrior. We're in a good position to do better than last year. To be honest, Tohu and SJ should have retired before the Magic round last year when we aced the Panthers. Okay, that's a Warriors fan.
Hold up, were Warriors saying that last year? It's all well and fine to say, well, SJ and Tohu are gone because they'll pass their best, but no one was saying that at the start of last season. They were all saying, look, we've got Sean, he should have got on the Dally M a year ago.
Yeah.
We're going to make the top 4. No, it's fine to say that, but are you the same Warriors fans who also said that Sean should have, Sean should have won that down.
Look, I think the ace the Panthers is the thing, and we spoke about that a little bit earlier when we were reflecting on
one
that.
game.
But
You've
it's
got to do it
against
24
the best team.
You've got to do it 24.
It says potential.
You've got to do it 24 times.
You're a hipster. What would you know? You wear flannel shirts.
This is the thing. So the moment I make a good point, you don't know how to counter. You're just going to bring up the whole hipster thing now, aren't you? Great. Wonderful. Thank you to whoever left that comment that I'm a hipster. Now you've given Marty ammunition.
There you go.
And it's going to get under my grill.
Does hipsters get girls? Do hipsters get girls?
Well, this one or others?
Don't ask me, mate. I'm 60 years old.
We do all right.
DSPN.
That's our podcast and show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow, tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.